I'm Ryan Milliken from Hardway Performance, and you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
I'm Dimitri Miller with No Zone Diesel.
This is Anthony Reeves from XDP.
Jaron Holder from Holderdown Performance.
I'm Corey Willis with PPEI.
I'm Drew with D&J Precision Machine.
I'm Pinky.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
Diesel Power Podcast.
And you're listening to the Diesel Power Podcast.
The one and only Diesel Power Podcast.
Dennis Perry, the owner of ATS Performance, joins us today on the podcast. We're really excited to have him on. He's been on a few other episodes. They've been fantastic. We've learned a ton about the products and different things in this industry from him. So we're grateful to have him on today. And we're going to be talking about a touchy subject, which is the EPA. Now, Dennis has been involved in this industry since the very beginning with inventing products, manufacturing them, sales, distributing them all over the U.S., and especially, in the racing. That's his passion. That's what he loves to do. He's played a huge part in diesel racing series and events and things like that. And TS is one of the leading companies out there that's weathered the storm, so to speak, and been involved in the different trends and the different engine platforms that have come out. And there's a ton of information and experience that Dennis has. Now, the EPA has been involved in the aftermarket diesel industry for a while now, but specifically with tuning, making sure that tuning devices, or software or things like that, aren't bypassing, defeating, or altering the emission standards for the newer trucks. And one of the first contacts a manufacturer or a shop has with the EPA is a certified letter. Well, Dennis talks to us about the letter he received regarding his modules in the whirlwind that ensues from that point on. He also offers some tips on how to handle this situation if your company happens to get one as well. Now, for the truck owners out there, why does this matter? Well, it directly affects what can or cannot be done to your truck. And not just tuning, it can go as far as hard part upgrades for anything you can imagine. Now, will it affect what's available to buy tomorrow? No. But it can next year and for years to come. So our greatest fear is that one day the way trucks come off the lot is how they're going to have to stay. And none of us want that. Whether we drive the trucks, make parts for them, race them, whatever it is. So you guys are going to love this episode. Let's jump into the podcast and hear right from Dennis. How you been, Dennis?
Man, I've been good. Getting some new modules done. Of course, 6.7 stuff, I think we hit that before. Just staying busy on that, getting ready for pulling season, racing season. I don't have any complaints right now, but I'm sure I can think of a few here for long.
Well, I had heard that a certain government agency had sent you a letter, which I think a lot of people in the diesel industry, the community, and truck guys, know that that's been on the radar. But we wanted to talk to you and get your thoughts on it and just kind of what happened, and then ways that we can be smart about what we do, with our businesses, with our trucks, with our performance.
Are we not allowed to say EPA?
Oh, you can say it. No, you can say
okay, yeah, the EPA sent me a letter. I didn't know if we needed to not say, their organization. Yep, I got one. And it was been pretty interesting dealing with them because when I was reading all their questions, my module doesn't do the way the packet's broke down. You've got your one page that kind of starts asking you questions. Do you delete? Do you remove EGRs? Do you do this? Do you, all on down? Do you advance timing? Things like that. Well, I didn't do none of those with my module. So I read on it for 2 or 3 days, and finally I was like, I got to take this to my attorney, because the honest answer was I don't do none of that. So I'm not. Then that also puts me to where I don't have to answer the rest of their questions either. And so I went there and I was talking to my lawyer, Wes Milliken, and I said, look, I'm going to draw down on paper. Here's what they're asking. Here's how my module works. He said, well, then that's how you answer it. And I said, well, that's how you answer it. I said, I said, I don't care. I said, I'll go argue with the wall, but I said, this is the government, so, we need to kind of make sure we argue properly. So it went, we filled it out, sent it in. He typed a letter with it that none of this pertained to me, and for any other contact with about me or anything else, be directed through him. So I guess maybe a month went by, and because I knew they weren't going to like my answer, because basically I just didn't answer anything. But I didn't lie about anything either. So they got a hold of Wes. Wes called me. We have a conference call. I go into Wes's office. We get the conference call, and they've got them listed. I don't remember the people's name, but I had some people from the EPA on the phone, engineers on the phone, a couple people from Washington on the phone. And they start out, and they wanted to know why I wasn't being compliant or why I didn't feel that I needed to answer their questions. So I go into it, and I said, well, it doesn't pertain to me. You ask all these questions, and I don't do none of that. And this is when the engineers pipe up. I'm sure they think that, I'm trying to get around or anything. They just picked the wrong persons, all they did. I don't do any of it. And so this guy's asking me questions. Do I add the pre-pulses? I said no, because as you well know, that would be called advancing timing. I don't do that. I don't delete anything. I said, but what we really want to talk about first is I want a non-disclosure signed. I said, because everything you got listed there, you've obviously never even looked at one of my modules. So mine don't operate like that. And I run a small company. I got families to protect. So I don't want to be listed under the item line right here. So he said, well, I don't understand why you want a non-disclosure. And I said, well, I'm entitled to one. And I said, I want to be compliant, with you guys. I said, I'm just shocked I got a letter. I said, I'm the only one in the industry that follows your rules. And, they said, well, there's a lot of people out there deleting. I said, I know. And I said, and it's cost me millions of dollars in potential sales because you guys aren't doing your job. It's not my job, to go out and I follow your rules. And I said, to be honest with you, the delete stuff is a lot cooler. I don't blame people. They got tons more options. They can do tons more performance. They can do tons of everything, and I'm over here operating within your window, and, it's just, I hate to say it about my product, it's not as cool as a delete. So I said, but in the meantime, while we're getting this signed, and my lawyer spoke up a few times, to clarify some things, but I said, in the meantime, I said, why don't I get you one of our modules, you can be performing your test on it, and everything else. He goes, oh, the engineer speaks up, and he says, you don't think your module can be reverse engineered? And I said, well, anything can be reverse engineered. And I said, I'm not worried about the EPA reverse engineering my product and for the market. Yeah. I said, I'm trying to show that I'm trying to be as easygoing, participate, give you what you need, and while we're getting this signed, we can, get a little ahead of the game here. I said, because the way I do my modules, I said, you're going to have to go back and nail the OEs for it if mine's wrong. He goes, well, we don't have a test. And I said, well, how do you know if somebody's breaking the law then? And if you didn't do a test, I was like, how do you, well, we just determined that it was. And I said, I'm going to need a test done. So...
And like so when it happens, it's just like a letter out of the blue, that you might get, and then you've got to deal with everything afterwards, like you just mentioned. Is that kind of how it?
Yeah, it's a certified letter.
Uh-huh.
You got to sign for it. Which, I'll be honest with you, I'm never up there when the mail comes, and even the day it came, I was up there, and they said, oh, the EPA sent you something here. I was like, give me that. I signed for it, opened it up. And I said, what do they want? So, but some things I wanted to even talk about with you and for your podcast, because they're popular, is maybe some things that can help a lot of the industry out if they do get these letters. For one, you definitely want to be compliant. For two, they're going to have engineers on there asking you trick questions. And that's how they're determining who's wrong, who's right, because they flat told me they don't have a test. Well, I'm going to require a test because I'm entitled to it, for one, and for two, I want to know how they're determining who's breaking the law. Because even, the way they're talking, no matter what you do, it is violating of that Clean Air Act. And I said, well, that's kind of a gray area. I said, I'm doing it just like the OEs are. So how am I wrong, but they're right? Well, they passed testing. And I said, well, then can I pass the testing? If you'll start asking them questions, and just to keep them honest, I'm not, like I told them, I said, I ain't against you guys. I said, I think some of the stuff you're doing is not the best for our industry, but, whatever. Y'all make the rules, I follow them. So, by saying that, but the trick, I even finally told that engineer, I said, quit asking me trick questions. You're questioning my intelligence, and I'm not going to answer it, because he said, okay, let me ask you this. Are you adding fuel? And I said, I'm not answering that question in that manner, but if you'll ask it to me in the right way, I'll answer it. I said, I'm adding fuel under a certain time, under a certain situation, under a given load, under a certain circumstance. Then I'm adding a percentage of fuel. I said, and that's the only way I will answer that question. So he went on again a few times, and he said, well, but are you adding fuel? And I said, remember, I'm not answering that. So he said, okay. And then he just repeated what I said, and I said, yes, I am. So that's what I mean. It's trick questions, and it gets a little, you got to be on your game if you talk to them. I don't think they're by any means on my team. I think I know exactly what they're looking to do and what they want. So it just so happens I'm not breaking the rules.
Again, like a whole bunch of questions pop up in my head when you think about, say, the OEs. And as, it's sort of a de facto kind of horsepower torque war that's going on. Mm-hmm. And they get more power out of, not necessarily the same exact engine. Like, they might change injection pumps or other things, but they are doing things to squeeze more power and torque out of it.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I start thinking, exactly like you said, like, there's things that are done year to year,
Exactly. And just like the 6.7's been running from, since 11? Now, yeah. It has had some changes and nothing major, but, I'm not doing anything any different than the OEs are. So, that part of it, they squeeze it out, and we do load-based tuning, and, I'm never adding the same amount of fuel. It's not a resistor that just says, okay, add 20% now. Well, it's got to meet 3 or 4 different things if I'm going to add 20%. I'm not answering the question. I'm not answering them blanket questions, because that's how the questions that they ask me, you could tell that dude's been on the phone with other diesel shops before. And that's how they're determining, if I did add the pre-pulses, then he could get me, because I would be adding timing, because I'm putting more fuel in, which does, advance timing. So since I don't do that, they thought I was trying to run them in circles. And then when I offered up my module, and then they don't have a test, and that rose a whole nother bunch of questions. I'm like, well, how do you know if people are breaking the law then? On plug-and-play modules that aren't adding timing or the pre-pulses, blah, blah, blah. And, how are you testing it? I said, well, to be honest with you, I'll delete the truck, and I take the exhaust, and I make sure that there's no smoke coming out of it. If there's no smoke coming out of it under any time on the dyno, on a load cell, then that's how I'm testing it. Then we drive the truck around. We watch the DEF usage. Are we increasing it? If we increase DEF usage, we know we're adding too much fuel. I said, so since there is no test for me to go by, I'm doing the best I can. But you got to think, if your filter that you spec'd out is efficient and and you're happy with it, then my module doesn't affect it at all. So I'm happy with it as well.
Yeah. What about the guys out there and gals, that, in this industry, whether it's, a lot of shops or enthusiasts or manufacturers, I'm not going too much into politics, but one of the prevailing things was with the election is if Trump wins, all this just goes away. And it happens overnight. And I wanted to ask you for your opinion on that.
Well, it's not going to happen overnight, for one. And they're still sending letters out, so nothing's stopped. And like in my case, I had already gotten a letter prior to that, as a bunch of people have, and they're still sending out letters. So even though Trump's in there, and he may defund them a little bit, but if you got a letter, they're not going to send you one and go, oh, never mind. You're an existing case, which means you're going to hire an attorney, which means you may have to go to court, you're still going to spend a ton of money, even if they don't get any money from you. Now, they are looking to find you and get money from you. That's what they're looking for because they're self-funded. And, in a lot of cases, they're not going to run into people like me. They're going to run into people that, if you are deleting, again, I'm not against it. They are. But if you are deleting them, they are. They flat told me. They even wanted me to tell on some people. They said, well, do you know anybody that is? And I was like, not my job. I said, that has nothing to do with me. I don't do it, and I don't, they said, well, we're on social media. And I said, well, then, looks like to me you're doing your homework. I don't know. Which it's not my job. I'm not going to sit there. If somebody gets away with it, I'm not one going, oh, well, he's doing it too. If you're getting away with it, go ahead. That's not my problem. But I do know that they are after everybody. So, one thing that I would recommend to anybody out there on social media, websites, is if somebody's asking the question, who does the best delete or what's the best tunes to run, and if you're selling them, message the guy. Don't answer it on there. Don't tell him to call you because all they're doing is getting on there and writing your name down, and then they're going to research you. Then if they find out you're doing quite a few of them, well, then you get a letter. And now you're involved in it. Here comes the lawyer fees. Here comes the court fees. Here comes, pain in your ass at any given time. So.
Yeah, I didn't really, I never really thought of that, but, because I've kind of been in that same camp where it's like, oh, well, all this is going to end right away. And then, not just with that, but with other things. But it's such a big, huge, giant albatross that it just doesn't stop on a dime. Oh, yeah, well. It's just in my opinion, I think we as an industry, push things too far. And, that's why we need to get back into underground stuff and, I don't know exactly how to put it, but, all of us at one time or the other was guilty. Even when you get your first diesel and 7.3 chips. You can make it, it was funny then, and it was fun, and, now, after years and years and years, they just got fed up with it. What advice would you give to the shops or, companies out there that might get a letter like this?
First thing, do not answer that letter yourself, because part of the letter, when you read it, you are technically answering it under oath. Okay? That's why right there is what got me. And I took it straight to a lawyer because, with the questions they ask and the things they try, I wasn't going to get accused of lying under oath. That was not my intention. And I'm not going to have it thrown back up to me if I said, well, this is the way I interpreted it. Well, but you said this. So I'm not getting into that, with any of them. they are the government and they can twist and turn stuff. And so my first advice is to call your attorney. Now, I think there's some attorneys out there that specialize in some of this EPA stuff. I went to an attorney, my personal attorney, and I've known him for a long time. He's always done a good job, and I just told him he was just going to have to figure it out. Because I don't know them other guys. I don't know their rates. I mean, I wasn't going to talk to an attorney as well that go, well, they're not really wanting that much from you. You're going to be better off just to pay it. No, because that means I'm guilty. So we're going to fight. And, that's exactly why I went to my personal attorney. But I did do that, and that's good advice because, answering the question even to the best of your knowledge, but if say it comes out and they say it's not true, well, then all of a sudden now you're a liar, you lied under oath. So, some other things that I would recommend, per what they told me they're looking for, is social media stuff. Tone it down. Just try to be, a little more discreet about it because, I mean, they said it was one of their main goals is to go after the deletes.
Yeah, that's something that does make it easy. I mean, just with the power of social media and how much reach that we can all have, in our own realms. And there's so much you could talk about on it. I just know, like I said, being on the phone with them, you're pretty much guilty. Is the way they treat you, the way the engineers talk to you. Even my lawyer told me before I got to talking to tone my smart mouth down because they do come at you and talk to you like you're the bad guy. Well, now we got a lot of good people in our industry that do know what they're doing, and they're not the bad guys. So, one thing there's been a big turn in our industry with different people getting involved, and there's a lot of people out there that don't care. They're just going to say, they're just going to say they do deletes this or that, and they'll worry about the other later. Well, it doesn't help the industry that you're selling in. So, take that into consideration. If you do like being in the industry, I'd hate to one day find out that you can't do anything to a diesel. Doubt it'll happen, but still, we've got enough of their attention right now. We need them to go spend their time on something else. Yeah, I think that's the biggest fear, that we all have is, we love to personalize our trucks, use them different ways, do different things with them, and if it's taken away, it'd be hard. I mean, that's what we all love. That's why we all do what we do and drive what we drive.
Right, and the diesel industry's come a long way. Manufacturers have spent tons of money along the way. When we come out with a new product, we're investing, money into it, and it takes a while to get that investment back out. So, I mean, if you get manufacturers stopping building product and new products, well, it's just going to become stagnant to be what it is, and, we'll have to go somewhere else and build something else in some other line of work that maybe we don't like as much.
Right. Well, I mean, this is a really fascinating topic, and it's something I've never heard a lot discussed about, and I know a lot of our listeners out there haven't, but it's real, it happens, and the advice, that you gave and the way that you described everything, I think is going to help a lot of people out there, whether they own a shop or they don't, or they own a company or they don't, or, you're just passionate about trucks and, want to personalize it, want to do something to it. It affects all of us.
Well, everybody here at TS, and we always say, working here is better than having a real job. And, and we all like, and by saying that, we all like what we do. And, everybody here does multiple different things. I mean, it's it's an awesome work environment. And, you know, I've worked in factories. I've worked at a lot of places I didn't like. And I love what I do. You know, we're good at it. We love the industry. So, you know, I'd hate to think that one day I had to go do something else. I'm not very employable, so I need to. I would have to own something.
Well, we appreciate you sharing all this insight with us, Dennis, and we love seeing the new products, and they got a ton of new stuff, you know, slated for this year, and there's a bunch of events, and TS is coming up in May, and
June,
it'll be
June 2nd and 3rd this year.
June 2nd.
Yeah.
Yes.
It normally was in May, but leap year pushed it into June.
Oh yeah, I forgot about leap year.
So now it's like June 2nd and 3rd.
There's gonna be some cool races out there. You know, a lot of guys we've been talking to, you know, with UCC and some of their project trucks and cars even. You know,
yeah.
They got some really interesting stuff, so it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. So, but yeah, that's everybody. You know, keep it above board, keep it off social media, and best of luck to everybody. If anybody out there has any questions on anything like this that I didn't answer, feel free to call me here.